Hi everybody, welcome to Woodfired Weekly at Manna from Devon Cooking School. This week we're going to be talking about heat deflectors. When we should use them, why we should use them, how to use them in the wood-fired oven. And we use them a lot, especially in smaller ovens, because they fulfill a number of roles. If we have a look in the Morso Forno here, you can see there how it's nicely retaining the fire off to one side of the oven and clearing a lovely amount of floor in there. So it gives me a little bit more space to play with. Also, because it's holding the fire back, much less likely to get ash in my food. And that can happen quite easily, quite accidentally. If you knock a pan into the fire, a bit of ash goes into your food, and you don't want too much of that going on. Also, if the fire is behind here, it's deflected up and over the oven, we can cook something much closer to the fire without scorching it, because we've got that heat deflected, and because our heat is deflected away from this side and over to that side, we get a better distribution of heat, so we're doing less turning of things in the oven. In this case, I've got this stainless steel heat deflector, which we do sell on our website. It's got some holes cut into it that allows oxygen to get into the fire, so we keep a nice bright fire burning. But you can also see how I've set it up so that when I place the door on the Forno, oxygen can still get to the fire, and that's important when we're trying to keep a bright fire going. You can also see that it's made of a nice heavy gauge stainless steel. It's not going to rust, it's not going to burn out quickly. You're not going to be buying one every 3 months. If you use a flimsy piece of steel to make one of these, then it'll work fantastically well, but it'll need replacing pretty regularly. In a larger oven, they're not so important because you've got a lot more space on the floor, a lot more separation between the food and the fire to start with, so you can get away with things much more readily. But in a small oven, they are really essential and a really useful piece of kit. We're moving on to the Bushman oven, and in this case I only tend to use the heat deflector in the small Bushman, in the 60 centimetre, plenty of space in the medium oven that we've got here at the school. So I'm going to show you how I set it up first of all. In this case, I tend to use it that way up, just because where the corners are cut off here, it fits more neatly into the side of the oven and allows me to push it back a little bit further again. I sweep everything over to the left-hand side, usually to the left-hand side, because I'm right-handed. So I can reach into the oven, I can feed the fire with my right hand, I can handle to the food with my right hand. It's just more convenient for me. Depending on how you've got your oven set up and angled, it might be easier to have it on the other side. What I would never do is put the fire retainer at the back, because then the fire would struggle to get enough oxygen to keep burning brightly. So always off to one side, it leaves this channel open and oxygen can get to the fire. So now I'm going to feed it a little bit of fire and we'll see how quickly flame gets up and comes over the top of the oven. Quite often I'll place this wood quite carefully, because what I don't want to do is pack it in so tightly that oxygen can't get through and get the fire burning brightly. A little puff of oxygen to get it going. So now when we look into the oven, I've got lots of floor space cleared. I've reduced the space that my fire is taking up to 15% of the oven floor space. So I've maximised my cooking area, minimised the fire, and we've now got a bright flame going over the top, which is distributing the heat nicely. I can cook almost next to the heat deflector right here, which again maximises my floor space, and I've got a lovely flame going right over the top of the oven. That's the heat deflector working perfectly in the Bushman. Finally, we're going to go and have a look at it in the stainless steel Alpha oven. My very first oven was a steel oven, much like the Alpha 4 Peats, a little bit smaller, not quite as good as this one, but it came with a fire retainer heat deflector, which is why I've always kind of thought I'd use one of those, and have used one ever since. And in the 4 Peats, or in any cast iron oven, it's really useful. Here we typically will have a barrel vault, not a dome, but a barrel vault. So we're going to have fire on one side and allow the flame to roll right over the top. And the heat deflector is ideal for this. So I'm going to sweep it off to the side and a little bit towards the back. So we keep the heat towards the back, we get less smoke leaking out of the front. In this case I have the fire on the right hand side, even though previously I mentioned that I like it on the left because I'm right-handed, and that is only because the door has these little holes on the right hand side, which means you can have some embers behind there and they still get a little bit of oxygen to keep them glowing nice and brightly. Having the fire on the right hand side does mean that we get a little bit of a false reading on the thermometer. We always get a false reading on the thermometer anyway. So here, because it's close to the fire, it's going to be reading much higher perhaps than the rest of the oven. That's normal anyway, and we should always take the reading from a door thermometer or from an external thermometer like that with a pinch of salt, because it's only telling us the heat in one place. With the deflector in place, we can see a nice flame licking up and over the oven. We will have more heat on this side of the oven than over here. That allows us to do a little bit of two-zone cooking. I've got a 90 centimetre wide floor in this oven. In a smaller oven, a lot of ovens, little Igniuses and Maximuses, will only be a 60 centimetre oven. The difference in temperature is not as pronounced across the width of the oven. As with the Morso Forno and the Bushman, we've got the fire to one side, the heat deflector, fire retainer off to one side or the other, not at the back. If it was at the back, it would just stifle the fire and we wouldn't be able to keep the fire burning nice and brightly. And in every case, it's about trying to control the rate at which the oven burns, clear the floor, keep things nice and tidy, not have all our ash and embers spilling over the floor in a random way, but we've got a nice controlled fire that we're in charge of, not the fire in charge of us. I hope that was a useful run through of how to use the heat deflector fire retainer in your wood-fired oven. We find them extremely useful and use them all the time. If you do have any questions, please leave it in the comments below. We do respond to all questions and comments. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We produce a new video every week. Thanks for watching. See you next time.